This video will provide an overview of the lessons for week 23, days 27 through 31. This week, your students will begin their work on Task 3, A Water Molecule's Journey. In Task 3, students explore the water cycle, the movement of water through Earth's systems, driven by energy from the sun and the force of gravity. When we were in school ourselves, many of us learned the water cycle as a linear sequence: evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and so on and so on. However, that one-way repetitive cycle is not an accurate model for how water actually travels around the Earth. There are many, many ways for water to journey around the Earth. In fact, rather than referring to the water cycle, it may be more helpful to refer to a water cycle instead. To start this week, on day 27, students will brainstorm and share what they already know about how water is involved in climate and different climate zones. Next, on day 18, students will explore the many ways in which water cycles around the Earth by playing a digital board game. This game will give students the opportunity to experience the many paths a single water molecule may take in its journeys around the Earth. After playing the game, students will use their experiences as a water molecule in the game to develop their own model of how water cycles around the Earth. Then, they will apply their model and prior learning about phase changes to critique an explanation of a natural phenomenon. A separate explanatory video for this activity is available as part of that lesson for day 30. Finally, students will end the week with discussion and reflection, a chance to process and share what they've learned. Let's go through the key points from each day, starting with the lesson for day 27. Start by having students review what makes each of Earth's 5 climate zones unique. Use the link on slide 13 to access NOAA's SciJinx website for students to read about the characteristics of each zone as well as where they tend to be located. Then, students should brainstorm and share ideas about the relationship of water to each climate zone. How does the presence or absence of water help define a climate zone? Students can write or diagram their ideas on page 1 of the student handout for Task 3. They should also record ideas they hear from their classmates during the whole class discussion. The main learning activity on day 28 is a water cycle board game. This game will give students an opportunity to explore how water travels around the Earth and how it changes as it passes through different environments and situations. The game resembles a traditional board game with a familiar structure. The roll of a die determines how many spaces to move from start to finish. Students play as a water molecule that visits various locations and situations in order to learn how water journeys around the Earth. While playing the game, students will record their journey on one of 2 templates found on page 3 and 4 of the student handout. Template 1 asks students to record each location they visit, as well as how they got there. Template 2 provides more structure for those students who need additional guidance, or for those learning asynchronously. Template 2 asks students to record what number they rolled with the die, which space they moved to and how they got there, as well as where they were coming from previously. On the game, clicking the Start space brings up all of the instructions for how to play. At the beginning of your turn, start by rolling the digital die to determine how many spaces you should move. Press play on the video die, then stop after a random amount of time, or just click to scroll to a random point in the video. To move that number of spaces, count from your current position, then click the space you moved to in order to reveal the next location that you, the water molecule, have moved to. When you click a space, you'll see your next location with the question, "How did you get here?" and a photo or video. The goal of the game is to explain how you, as a water molecule, arrived at that location from your previous location. If you're not sure, click Facts at the bottom of the card to flip it and read more about how water may arrive at your new location. Then, in one of the templates in the student handout, be sure to add your location and how you got there. This will help you keep track of your journey as you, the water molecule, travel all around the Earth. Continue working towards the finish line by rolling the die, counting spaces, and then flipping cards to see where your water molecule ends up next. Be sure to always record where you ended up and how you got there in the template in the student handout. The following day, Students will use what they've learned from the board game to construct their own model of a water cycle. From playing the game and sharing their journeys with each other, students will have learned that there is not one water cycle, but rather that water cycles around the Earth in various ways. With that knowledge, students can create their own model based on their experience with the game. On page 5 of the student handout, students will create a model to show how water cycles through Earth's systems. They should include the 3 different states that water exists in on Earth, places where water is found, the processes that cycle water, and the energy and forces that drive it all. On day 30, students will examine and critique an incorrect explanation of one specific phenomenon in the water cycle. A puddle forms during a storm, but quickly disappears. What happens to the water in the puddle? Where does it go? Another video with this lesson goes into more detail about the incorrect explanation that students will critique, as well as what correct explanations might look like. Finally, Day 31 gives students the opportunity to reflect on what they've learned so far. Students will discuss their learning in groups, as well as generate new questions based on what they've done. Be sure to review the new academic vocabulary and sentence starters on the interactive bulletin board, as well as review and add to the class concept map. The final wrap-up question for the week can help students make a personal connection to what they've learned, as well as come full circle to the original question at the beginning of the week: how water impacts different climate zones. Remember, each lesson comes with a cover slide with links to Google Docs and other materials. The following slides provide helpful content background information, suggestions for teaching synchronously or asynchronously, language development supports, and supports for ELs and students with disabilities. Those are the main tasks and key points for week 23 as students begin Task 3, A Water Molecules Journey.